of the to be part of this meeting. Really appreciate it. I think the first agenda item is to just do a roll call, and I'm going to turn that over to Joanne.
Okay, so we've got, thank you, Mary Ellen. So we've got John Murray, our co-chair, who sends his apologies, not able to make it today. Mary Ellen, present. Do we have Jason Hunter?
Present.
Okay, Chris Cooney? Not yet. Pam McCarthy, yep, I saw Pam.
Yeah.
Rob May, we've got
Yep.
you. Stephanie Danielson? Yep.
Present.
Mary Ellen DeFrayis? No. Jay Patikas?
Here.
Jay, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Very well. Thank you, Joanne.
Okay, good. Jennifer Dubois-Briand has sent her apologies. She's on vacation, but I see we've got Michael Dutton from the town of Bridgewater. Welcome. Valerie Massard. I think Val said she wasn't going to be able to make it either. Leah Filson. I think I saw Leah on here.
Present, it's Lee.
Oh, Lee. I'm sorry, Lee.
It's okay.
Michael Lambert. We saw you on here, didn't we? Yes, there you are. Is Joe on as well? No. Okay. Deborah Roberts. Welcome, Deborah. We'll introduce you in a little bit.
Thank you. Here.
Stephen Cole. I don't think I saw Stephen. No. And Jack Riley has joined us. I think, Jack, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hello and welcome. We have a whole bunch of other people present with us. Dottie, would you be able to write them down? Or actually, I'll be able to export them from the Zoom. So never mind. I think we'll be good on that. Okay. So we do have a quorum with a majority of members present. So back over to you, Mary Ellen.
Okay, thanks, Joanne. I believe it was last Friday that you sent out the draft minutes of the last meeting. So I'm gathering that most people had a chance to look at those, but if there are any questions, please bring those forward. Or if anyone needs a few more minutes, then
Joanne, just as an aside, Chris Cooney is joining the CEDS meeting as a Teams. I'll message him with the details, okay?
Thanks, Mary.
thanks, Mary. Any comments on the minutes?
I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any objections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Thank you. The minutes are accepted from the last meeting. And now we're gonna shift over to committee membership updates and recruitment. So
Yep,
Joanne, I'll
so-
let you take the lead on that.
Thank you. I'm just going to attempt to share my screen here. Hold on a second. All right, super. Can everybody see that okay? Great. So back in September, and folks who see their names listed on the screen here should have received confirmation from me yesterday. We have made official reappointments for John Murray, Mary Ellen, Jason, Chris, Pam, Rob, Stephanie, Mary Ellen DeFrayis, Jennifer, as well as Valerie for the CEDS committee. So those are all official. The substitutes don't need to be voted on, but we do have them noted as on this table. We have 5 appointments here that we've discussed at previous meetings that are going to be finalized at the March 30th OCPC Governing Council meeting. So Leah Filson from C Plymouth, Lee's been, sorry Leah, I did it again. Lee's been joining our meetings for a while now. Michael Lambert and Joe, I think one or both have attended some meetings in the past as well, so they'll be officially put forward on the 30th. Deborah Roberts will be a new addition to our committee. So for those of you who don't know Deborah Roberts, she is a Stoughton Select Board member, the vice chair. And Deborah, I'd like to give you maybe like a quick 30 seconds just to introduce yourself so that folks can, because I know you've got a lot more to you than just your select board membership. You there, Deborah?
Yes, I am. I was just
Okay.
taking myself off from mute. Oh, hello, everyone. My name is Deborah Roberts, and I am so happy to be here to work with you. I'm a longtime resident of the town of Stoughton. I've lived here for over about 33 years now. So over 30 years. My children were raised here in Stoughton, and I have participated on various committees such as the Finance Committee. I was the vice chair of the Finance Capital Project Planning Committee for the town of Stoughton. I've served on the board multiple terms on the assessors board. I'm also a town meeting rep for multiple terms. So I get really involved in things that are going on in the community and, you know, the surrounding community. I'm on the MBTA advisory board as well. So that's just a little bit about the things that I do. And I could go into some of my accomplishments as well, but I have the type of personality, I just jump right in and try to get things done. And that's while working collaboratively with my teammates. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Deborah, and welcome. Stephen Cole from the Plymouth Regional Economic Development Foundation will also be joining us and being put forward to the Governing Council on the 30th. Many of you folks probably do know Stephen. He's involved in a whole host of economic development related activities in and around the Plymouth area, particularly convention center development and other projects as well too, including an entrepreneurial center. Stephen was nominated by Lee Hartman, who used to be on this committee. So he's kind of taking over that role for Lee. And then we also have Jack Riley. Jack, thank you for joining us today. I'm going to give you a little bit to introduce yourself too. So you should be able to unmute.
Yeah, my name is Jack Riley. I work for Harbor One Bank. I've been with the bank for going on 5 years, and I've been, you know, working within the community for equal amount of time, serving on various boards within the community, all nonprofit boards providing different services for the Brockton area.
Thanks, Jack. Jack's also involved in the Greater Brockton Young Professionals Group as well too. So welcome, Jack. Thanks for joining us. So all of the folks now, since we redid our terms of reference last year, everybody will now be on an annual cycle. So everybody's term will end at the end of June, and at OCPC's annual meeting, which is usually in June, sometimes a little bit before that, I'll ask folks if they want to continue serving, and you'll just have to confirm that with me, and then we'll put your names forward again, and they'll just do the official kind of slate vote at the annual meeting. So that means that our committee of 19 has 4 seats left. So we did talk about approaching NeighborWorks Housing Solutions to see if there is somebody from that organization to represent the Housing Connection on the committee who may be interested. So we are working on that. And then OCPC, we've got 3 recommendations for additional folks to fill out the committee. So we just wanted to hear your thoughts on these people and see if you'd like us to approach them or whether you might have alternative suggestions as well. So the first recommendation we're making is Melissa Ferretti. She is the chairlady and president of the Herring Pond Wampanoag tribe. So the tribe is sort of headquartered in Plymouth, but tribal members are not just limited to the Plymouth area, but in fact can be in other parts of the country as well. In addition to being involved with the with her tribe, she is also a realtor. And she's an advocate for environment and youth in her community. So she's involved in quite a lot of projects around both those topics. So she's our first recommendation to fill seat 17. We also have Trisha White, who is the owner of T White Creations. Trisha is involved in a lot of projects regionally having to do with small business. So she is a small business advocate and also marketing expert. She actually is currently working with NeighborWorks to hold some marketing workshops for small businesses on website development, social media, things like that. And in addition, she helps run the Norwood Space Center, which is sort of a co-working space / collective innovation hub for a whole array of really neat businesses, including a glass blowing studio, all the way through to kind of like a rent your own space and sell your own crafts kind of collective. And the third recommendation is Kyle Haas. So Kyle, I believe, is a resident of Plymouth, but his day job is with Swell Energy. He is an energy expert and knows quite a lot about the both traditional and emerging energy technologies. So we thought he would be a good addition, in particular because there is a pretty significant connection between energy, climate change, and economic development, but also more broadly, he has an understanding of other climate change and environment related issues too. So kind of from more that resiliency angle. So those are our 3 recommendations, and we would love your feedback on those. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen at this point too, so we can all see each other.
Joanne, I just want to interject to let you know that Val Massard is here also.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Joanne, those sound great. Do you need a motion or do you want to cull the list, or how do you want to do that?
I think if the committee is happy, then a motion to move those 3 people forward to the governing council would need to be made, and then we'll take it to the governing council probably for the end of March meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, so all in favor, let's see.
Aye.
Mary Ellen?
Roll call?
Yep,
You need a roll
Mary
call?
Ellen? Yeah.
Boy.
So I know, it'll be quick, I promise. Mary Ellen?
Yes.
Jason Hunter?
Yes.
Chris Cooney?
Yes.
Pam McCarthy?
Yes.
Rob May?
Yes.
Stephanie Danielson?
Yes.
Jay?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
And Val?
Yes.
See, quick and easy. It passes. Thank you, everyone.
Joanne,
All
I
right,
just
back
had,
over to you.
Joanne, I just had one thing, and as this has been approved, as the year goes on, you know, people should be culminating additional names as we go along the way. Just to have like a waiting list. This is always a great group to continue to grow as different industries. So thank you.
Yeah, and our terms of reference do allow for amendments pretty simply. So if we do ever want to grow from 19, we can do that also. All right, back over to you, Mary Ellen. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. You can hear me okay, right? Okay,
Yes.
good. So I still haven't cut out. So I think that first, I just want to say thank you, everyone, for listening to that and opening up the committee to new people, and especially thank you to Jack and Deborah for joining us. It's really nice to have you and to meet you, and we're excited to work with you too. So really appreciate that. I believe the next item on the agenda is, hold on. Sorry, I just lost my agenda.
That's okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to, you got it?
Yeah, if you would.
Okay. Yeah, so the next item is the intro to mass builds and a request for development updates. So we're gonna actually, instead of passing it to Lori, who's off sick today, we're gonna pass it off to Dottie.
Hello, everyone.
Dottie, oh,
Am I sharing my screen now?
yes.
Okay, great. So this is a little bit of an introduction to Mass Builds. Mass Builds is an online interactive repository of past, present, and planned developments from large to small, commercial to residential, and across the Commonwealth. Anyone can go onto the massbuilds.com website and track planned or past developments and see town by town trends in aggregate over time. Mass Build lets users explore this development.
We're losing you a bit, Dottie.
Okay.
I think you're okay now. Try again.
Mass Builds lets users explore projects in full detail and search by geography, project status, development size, year of completion, and much more. It's becoming one of the most comprehensive databases of past, present, and future development in the area. And as it grows, it will be more valuable. Mass Builds gives a basis for big picture thinking, and the tool lets you know what's going on where and when. It gives you a window into development trends in aggregate over time and town by town. It's all in one place in a nice, clean, easy to navigate interface. It's existed for several years, but it's more important now than ever. The information will help inform projects or forecasts of development, employment, and household demographics in the future. These projections will be used to allocate over $100 million of federal transportation funds each year to plan transit service updates, forecast water needs, model future energy demand, and create economic incentive programs, among other state and regional initiatives. So it's really important that our communities take a look at this and make sure that we have all that information in there. We want you to weigh in, tell us about proposed new development or new construction that is not showing, and let us know if we have things that are in planning that are actually under construction or any other updates, and fill in any of the missing information about the number of stories or parking spaces or some of the other data points in there. So you can actually get your own login and if you were so inclined in your community, because I know we have all this spare time among us, or you can drop us an email or ask me to export the data for your community and I can send it to you in a spreadsheet. You can take a look at it that way and then let us know what's missing. So I did Easton, there was a lot missing. So I'm in the process of trying to update that. And so here's, let me just try to get, I'll do 50 Main Street, Easton. So it will zoom in and show us where the development is. Let's see. So here's the Ames Shovel Works. You click on that and then it gives you the card and it talks about when it was completed. It's missing a lot of information on this. It's one of the ones that needs to be updated, but you can add in the number of stories, the parking spaces, and then you can put in a link. These were done before my time, but the ones that I've been updating, I've been putting in the link to the property card in the town database so that it shows a lot of detail in there. If it isn't built yet, you can put in a link to the prospectus or whatever you want that makes it easy for you to look at. So it's a pretty cool tool. It is not updated, I will tell you that, probably not for, you know, there's some in there that might be bigger developments, but what I've looked at, there's missing a lot. So if you're interested, drop me an email and I'm happy to send you the spreadsheet for your community. And Deborah, you have a question? You're on mute, Deborah.
You're still on
you're
mute,
still-
Deborah.
Yep.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and to you, Dottie. Nice seeing you again.
You too.
Regarding the infrastructure bill, are we going to have an opportunity to discuss what it qualifies under the infrastructure bill? Because on the surface, we know it's roads and highways, but there's also this underlying communication that it's much more robust than just that. And if that's the case, Stoughton would like to be all inclusive and include everything that it would be eligible for.
Sure. Well, one of the things that that we do on the committee is we take advice on what committee members would like to see as topics. So when the infrastructure bill is available, that could be something that you send to Joanne, and she can share that with the chairs, and we can see if we can talk about that at one of the meetings. But that's a really good idea.
Oh, thank you.
Dottie?
Yep.
I have a question about the mass builds. So where, do we know what the original source was for, or data source was for populating? Because you're saying that Easton doesn't have a lot of information here. And I'm thinking that maybe in our department, I could have one of the clerks pull together the spreadsheet. You know, if you send it to us, we can fill it out because we have that online permitting system. It should be pretty easy for them to collect information.
Sure. Well, lucky for you, I already have Easton's spreadsheet and I can send it to you, but that was the one I volunteered to fill in the missing blanks on. The housing projects, the criteria for it, and I can send this document out to everybody if they're interested in it when we do the follow-up. But for housing projects, they want to identify rural and suburban communities, anything greater than 10 units, and for urban communities, anything greater than 20 units. And then for commercial projects, for rural and suburban, anything greater than 20,000 square feet. And for urban communities, anything greater than 50,000 square feet. So if you have those kind of parameters, it will, you know, it's not supposed to be exhaustive of every single thing that's being built, but anything of any significance that would impact traffic or, you know, different traffic pattern flows or a big increase in people in a specific part of your town. And then you can measure where that is compared to, you know, economic development, for instance. If, you know, you're putting housing, where's the supermarket closest to that kind of a thing?
Yeah. And is that the primary purpose of the tool is for planning purposes and kind of understanding, again, as you said, maybe locating new development, but where towns and communities in the state would want to invest in infrastructure, roadway improvements?
I think originally this is really developed by Mass DOT to help look at socioeconomic forecasts for transportation. But along the way, I think other groups have seen this as a really great tool for that if it's updated properly. And that's the key. If it's not updated, it's not a useful tool. So that's why we're working hard as the regional planning agency to make sure that we can update as much as we know, but we don't know our communities as well as each community knows it themselves. So we might all, you know, if we have somebody that lives in Abington on staff, he probably knows what's going on in Abington, but I wouldn't have any idea, you know, unless I did a lot of research. So that's why it would be easier to get help from the towns.
So what we'll do is in the follow-up email to this meeting, we'll include the link to this tool as well as some instructions for how to get development info to us or how to create your own account to keep it updated. Chris makes a good point that there could be usefulness in this tool in looking at water and sewer needs in the region as well. So I'm sure everybody's brains are spinning with, you know, how this could be used to inform both local and regional planning. Dottie, did you have anything else on that?
No, that was it.
Okay, great. Back over to you, Mary Ellen.
But I just wanted to thank Dottie for that and all of the comments as well. Before we sort of switch to the next topic, which is discussion about future topics for our webinars, which is what happens when we don't actually meet in person as a group. We host these webinars, you know, on various economic development projects. And so kind of what was brought up in the by Deborah, I believe, in the last section. Just a good thought to be thinking about the infrastructure funds and how to get the information out to people on exactly what's available, when it's available. As we all know, sometimes information comes down and it's really kind of disparate depending on who's putting it out. So it would be great if OCPC can seek out, the best sort of representation of the information so people can really understand what the options are. So that's just something to keep in mind as the infrastructure bill, more details come forward, because I think we can be really useful in that way. So yes, Joanne, I believe, you're going to lead the next item, which is the discussion about what kind of economic development webinars we want to have.
Yes, so we've got 4 planned for this year. The dates are hopefully on your screen. The first one will be on May 10th. So we're keeping to the 12 noon to 1 p.m. slot. That is sort of the reserved CEDS slot for everything we do. We don't have a topic specifically in mind for the 10th. So we wanted to hear thoughts from you all for May as well as for later in the year. The topics that we've sort of bounced around at previous meetings are all listed there on the screen. I know there was particularly some interest in understanding better how the Metropolitan Planning Organization works, that OCPC staffs, and how communities can get transportation projects onto the Transportation Improvement Program. So that's one idea. We've talked a lot about water and sewer and regional collaboration, so that could potentially be another webinar. With some of you, I've discussed downtowns and main streets, in particular parking challenges and pedestrian safety, and how all of that kind of links together for revitalization. We've also talked about softer things like how to win economic development administration grants or grants in general. As well as how a municipality might be able to market their community better to attract business, and or how to make their community more business friendly in terms of zoning and regulation and other kind of town level decisions. So with that, I open it up for your thoughts on any and all of the webinars for this year. If you'd like to add ideas to the list, or recommend something specific for a specific month, now is the time.
It's Pam. I think anything related to marketing, I think would be great to have as one of the earlier webinars. I actually attended Trisha White's class that she was giving for free last week through NeighborWorks, the marketing, helping to let businesses know how to set up their own websites and things, because I know from doing the status reports, getting updates from all the businesses I gave grants to, the micro enterprise grants, their number one need is still marketing. So I know that on here we kind of put it as marketing for the community, but I think we also need to get down to the level of how to help our businesses that need helps with their individual websites and things too. Because Dottie spent a lot of time with me, and I still have to complete it. I actually want to meet with Dottie on the marketing app, but when you get down to it, a lot of the businesses just do not have the websites. Either they don't have one at all, or they don't have one that's up to date and really useful. So I think these are all great topics, but I think marketing is one of the most important ones right now.
Joanne, I would echo marketing your community for business.
Raise your hand.
Was that wrong? Gee. Oh, because everybody else was jumping all in.
I know.
So marketing your community for business, and that really relates to making your municipality business friendly. I think in Easton, we feel we're business friendly, and people, a lot of the business owners, once they start working with the town, find the town. Very easy to work with, really open to the business opportunity and making it a welcoming place and easy to manipulate and maneuver. But it's getting through that front door, where we actually talked about that today in a small business group meeting that we've been hosting on a monthly basis. And it's a point of discussion Development Council this Thursday. So really trying to look at it from the business's perspective and how they find the information they need, especially the small businesses.
Rob?
I would like to get back to this conversation about the infrastructure bill. I think it's too big a topic for a CEDS 1 hour, and maybe that's something that OCPC could do. You know, because we need to bring in our DPW folks, and we need to bring in our finance people. We're hearing all sorts of rumors about, you know, how to get access to this, and I think that, you know, it'd be nice to have a clear, concise half-day session if we need to all figure this out. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Rob. That's definitely something we could do. We've done special meetings about the one stop and other things as well too. So Chris, your hand's up.
Yes, thank you. So I agree with the previous speakers. I had a lot of information on each of those topics. The infrastructure, as you know, the chamber would really love to see a coordinated, collaborated study. Maybe OCPC could do that for water and sewer usage in the region. And what I'm talking about specifically is this notion of Brockton sharing a small amount of sewerage with the industrial parks and the main streets of the towns surrounding it. That could it could diversify. It would diversify the businesses in the region. It will attract another segment of industries to the region. It'll prevent companies like Ockers, who just moved out of Brockton after growing tremendously in the last 5 years, and then last 2 years grown again. They had to grow, and there was no place to grow. They grew out of the area into Middleborough and sold their property. They've been here 70 years. They sold their property on West Chestnut just in the last month. So we you know, just for a little bit of sewage to activate some of these industrial parks at a much higher level. When I say a little bit, I mean under 750,000 gallons a day would do it. That plant is a regional facility built with federal dollars, and it was supposed to serve the entire region to the capacity of 40 million gallons a day. Now, because of the Rivers Act and EPA concerns, they cut that capacity back to 21 million gallons. And Brockton's, you know, the last I saw in the last EPA report was processing about 10 million gallons a day on the peak days, unless there was a flood situation. So they certainly have some capacity, and the state and the feds have already granted the city the ability to go ahead and enter into municipal agreements. Anyway, this is a topic for OCPC as a regional economic development and planning agency. I think when people hear about this, they don't even know where to start. How much sewage? Where would it go to? Would it be housing? Would it be business? Why would we do that? Why would we share it? And you know, a small study or something along those lines to educate people and get everybody on the same page as a region and thinking regionally could really go a long way. I can tell you, we received a grant not long ago. The chamber can put $10,000 towards this in the next few months if it's something that OCPC, you know, could also help with. In terms of marketing, there's two marketing pieces. One is, as many of the people on this call know, Brockton Partnership has been moving forward with a brand identity for Brockton, and as Brockton goes, so goes the region. So it is important that Brockton be able to identify itself, brand itself, and promote itself as a new frontier for housing expansion and growth, as well as business growth. And finally, we did just apply for another grant We applied for 2 grants. One was the Mass Office of Travel and Tourism, which would really help mostly the city of Brockton with the branding. But we applied for another grant, which is twice the size, which was modeled after the Ponce Valley area that focused on creating a restaurant month and promoting a lot of the restaurants in the region. But part of that would allow for 6 or 8 or 10 restaurants to have their websites reconfigured. So to the point that was just made by Pam, we would reach, if we get this grant, we should be notified by the end of the month. We would reach out to several of you on this call and ask for nominees that are likely restaurants that could use some real help with getting their restaurant and their websites up to a higher level. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Pam, you've got your hand up?
Yeah, actually, I was going to bring that up later, Chris. I'm glad you mentioned that because I told you I attended the class that Trisha White gave on marketing, and she was the one that told me about the Neponset Valley Chamber grant, that they actually helped the websites of, I think it was Norwood, Dedham, Canton, and maybe Walpole. And, you know, we were kind of left out of the process. Nobody asked if Stoughton wanted to be included in that, because we also have businesses that are members of that chamber and businesses that really go towards your chamber too. So I would definitely be interested, because that's exactly what type of assistance some of our businesses, especially the restaurants, are looking for. So if possible, keep Stoughton in mind for that. Thanks.
Thanks, Pam. Deborah?
Yes, I had a couple of questions and comments just to somewhat level set. For our webinars, who's our audience?
So the webinars are open to anybody who's interested in the topic. So historically, we've ranged from probably around like 35 all the way up to like 80 attendees. And a lot of them do come from our region. So they might be the town administrators, planners, DPW staff, also folks from connected nonprofits or private sector. But we also do get, I'd say probably about 1/3 of our audience is often from outside our region as well too. So that might mean state level, either elected officials or folks from any of the state agencies, and then other regional planning agencies, planners from other towns and other parts of the state. So it's really a varied audience depending on what the topic is.
Oh, great, thank you. The second point is branding is a big piece. So I agree with what Pam said about the first bullet point, marketing your community for business, and branding is a big piece of that, of the marketing. So marketing and branding your community. I just wanted to throw that in there, that's a piece of the marketing in my view. But the other piece that I'm really interested in, and I wonder how I can get that this pretzeled in, and if I'm interested in it, I believe others would be too, and that is, how do you get developers engaged in your mission? So we have, you know, I was just thinking about 2 examples. One is right across bordering to Stoughton, that's in Canton. They got some developers together and they invested in that little community. It's housing, condos with the restaurant. And then my second example was the Omni Parker Hotel downtown on Seaport. They got developers, investors involved, and it was a group of minority investors to build that big luxurious hotel. Not that I'm saying we should do that in Stoughton, but I did question, how did they do that? Is that under the umbrella of marketing to developers, or is that under the umbrella of infrastructure? But how can we get, how to engage with developers and investors in what we're trying to do in our economic development of our towns and communities?
That's a great suggestion. That's definitely come up before as well too. I don't think I see any other hands. Does anybody else have any comments or suggestions for webinar topics? No. Okay, so at this point, what we'll do is we'll take the conversation that we've had today. We'll talk about it internally at OCPC, and we'll come up with a suggestion for the May webinar. It looks like we're probably going to do something around marketing and or the infrastructure bill, depending on the timeline for that. So we'll unpack that a little bit more and then bring that back to you guys with an update via email. If at any time any other topics kind of pop into your mind, feel free to email me. I'll add them to this list. So, oh, was that a cough or was that somebody wanting to say something?
Well, I
No?
think it was
Okay.
a cough.
Oh, Rob,
Sorry, I didn't
terrible.
mute.
That's all right. So yeah, so let me know if you've got ideas for other topics and I'll add them to the list as we continue to plan for the rest of the webinars this year. Super, so that's all I've got. Back over to you, Mary Ellen. Thank you.
Thanks, Joanne, and thanks, everybody. Great questions, great ideas. It's a comprehensive list, and I think all the comments basically support what was initially put out there, but with more depth and more questions. So I think, you know, sort of to underscore what folks have said, I think that OCPC is going to be really important, especially when it comes to the infrastructure bill, and the way, again, the information is passed on is so important. It's not just the information, it's the way it's delivered is really, really important. That goes a long way to educating, you know, folks who don't do planning necessarily, but are actively involved in the community and in the business sector in particular. So I think Chris has a good idea in terms of, you know, maybe doing some half-day sessions when we have more information, you know, to do kind of teaching and listening tours and open it up to folks who are interested based on category, you know, so marketing and water and sewer share and other, you know, transportation, et cetera. So that's really my comment on that. And I just, again, want to thank everybody for theirs. I think, like I said, it ties in nicely with the list, and it's just, you know, expanding and categorizing and creating more depth around those particular topics. So I'm going to pass it over now to Dottie and to Stephanie to talk about the multifamily zoning requirements for MBTA communities, but I just want to give you guys a heads up. We're running late, so we've set aside a fair amount of time for this, but if you could just be mindful of the time, that would be super helpful.
Sure. So I want to just introduce Stephanie. Stephanie's done a really great amount of work on MBTA communities in Easton, and I'm not going to give any kind of a introduction beyond that because of time. So Stephanie, just jump right into it.
Okay, for those of you who don't know me, I am the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the town of Easton. And we have been working on this since December, when the guidance was first published. And I want to give a little bit of background on what we're talking about when we talk about MBTA community zoning, for those who may not be familiar with it. Basically, in 2020, the governor signed the economic development bill that included a new section to the zoning regulations. It was a mandate that MBTA communities must have a zoning district that would allow, by right, multifamily units at a density of 15 units per acre. And again, what's an MBTA community? Their MBTA communities are communities that are either serviced by MBTA transit stations, or they are adjacent to other communities where there are MBTA services. The mandate required, and I think I may have just said this, but it required that those districts be within a half mile of a train station, so a radius of a half mile. At the time the legislation was put into effect, it was recognized that the specifics on how this would work had not been laid out, and the DHCD, the Department of Housing and Community Development, was charged with developing guidelines on how the regulations would be implemented. Those were issued in December. And basically what it states, it identifies 2 levels of MBTA communities, those that have transit stations located within the bounds of their municipal boundaries, or if you're a municipality where you are located within a half mile, whether it's within your own community or your borders of an MBTA community. And then there are MBTA adjacent communities. And the reason that's important is that there is I call it a density multiplier, that in addition to the 15 units per acre, you need to meet a certain percentage of your housing stock needs to be able to be accommodated through that zoning district. So in addition to the 15 units per acre, for example, Easton's an adjacent community, we have a 10% multiplier, and that means with a 2020 census count, housing count of 9,130 units, we have a 913 unit bonus that we need to meet. So when this was first announced, I think a lot of communities really felt this was pretty strong-armed approach and reacted kind of like, okay, what do we do? How are we going to accommodate this? Important point I forgot to mention is tied to the mandate is an incentive. And that incentive is that if you are an MBTA community and you do not adopt by right, a multifamily by right zoning district by the end of 2024, you will not be eligible for some important funding opportunities like the MassWorks grants and the Housing Choice Initiative. And to make it even more enticing or a greater incentive, the Housing Choice designation, which some communities like Easton were going to actually fall out of because of the standards that you had to meet, they eased some of those standards and allowed your designation to continue forward. So you would be able to benefit from the Housing Choice Grant Awards, but still you'd have to be compliant with the requirement. So what Easton's been doing, I mean, again, after kind of the initial approach and thinking, gee, we aren't even located within a half a mile of an MBTA station, how is this going to affect us? Easton looked at the bigger picture. For the last 15 years, which is the time I've been working in the town, and probably starting before that, Easton has really looked at how to meet the housing needs of its full population. And at the same time, looking at building communities, especially targeted in our economic growth areas. Those are areas that have grown dynamically and naturally with a mixed use commercial flavor in along its arterial corridors. But really developing areas that have a sense of neighborhood, they're walkable, they have mixed use, they may be providing opportunities for shopping, for working, for recreation. And also, Easton has also had several large multifamily developments occur over the last few years. So we made a recommendation to put a task force together to start looking at the regulations. DHCD has provided a comment period that ends on March 31st. We felt that the task force should be looking at the guidelines. We should start looking at the potential district areas, most of those centered around where we already have mixed-use commercial development, multifamily zoning, and that are located closer to areas while we don't have public transportation, but maybe located a little closer to the highways and other arterial corridors. And start looking at those districts, start identifying what our comments are, what the questions are that maybe the guidelines didn't answer, and come up with an approach. And where we're at right now is we've identified 5 to 7 potential areas that we will start looking at more closely at our next meeting. This task force has been appointed. It's the representation is the various land use type boards, the finance committee, the school committee, the select board, and key town staff. I am a member of the task force, our community planner. We have representation from the fire department, which would have an interest in emergency response to any densely populated area. The next step is to develop guiding principles for how we are going to approach developing the zoning. What do we want it to look like? What should it say about Easton? How does it fit in with, people use the term a lot, but the character of Easton? How are we going to develop that? What type of mixed use are we thinking about? And making sure that areas do provide walkability and the ability to kind of live, work, and play in a district. We have already submitted our application for compliance, the initial compliance, and have put together an action plan for how we're going to continue moving forward on this zoning district and developing it and moving towards a town meeting vote at some point in the future and identifying opportunities for public outreach. Dottie, do you want to add anything to that?
I would just say that the takeaway from me is that a lot of communities are already doing this work and being proactive in moving this forward and not trying to fight it, you know, to see if it does fit in well with your community. I know Stoughton's done a lot of work in their zoning around their train station in their downtown. So this is really kind of a continuation of that. Brockton's done, you know, some work in their zoning. So it's not a one size fits all. It's going to be tougher in some smaller communities than others. And when I hear from them, I tell them, write up your questions and your comments and send it in, you know, because they're not going to be unreasonable, I don't think. But if you have a town that is all wetlands and there's no place to build, you need to let them know that. And to get the compliance so that you're eligible for Mass Works and housing choice, all you have to do is 3 things. You have to have a meeting in front of your select board or your city council to just talk about this issue. There's a small questionnaire on the website that you have to fill out, and you have to make sure your GIS maps are updated with DHCD. They already know who needs to update them. So if yours is not updated, you already heard from them by now. And that allows you to be in compliance for fiscal year 22 grant funding. Then you have months to work out the details on this before we get to the next milestone. And I can send links in the follow-up also, but most of the communities already know where all this information is, and they know the timetable, schedule, and so forth. So it's you know, it's going to be a progress. It's going to be a process for communities to comply. Some will, some won't. And I know that Easton is taking advantage of this as an opportunity to really further some of the things we've already been working on.
Yeah. And some of the questions that we've raised so far, I mean, we have a 40R district that could potentially be part of this district. We want to know how the underlying 40R zoning would be affected by the overlay if we develop this. I mean, your district has to be 50 acres in total. 25 acres of that must be contiguous, but you can have smaller overlay districts that are a minimum of 5 acres. So again, that's one of our questions. How does the mixed use, DHCD has already responded in a lot of the presentations they've done and FAQs that they've published, that mixed use is allowed. So you can have some commercial, but you really have to look at how you can introduce the commercial and still meet the density requirements. So those are some of the things that we will be doing analysis on as we look at our district. The state has promised technical assistance support for communities, and we are hoping to take advantage of that so that we can really evaluate where the districts might make the most sense for us. And again, as Dottie mentioned, Easton really feels we're looking at this and building on what we've already done. So we already know generally that we're going to focus these areas in these kind of sustainable development areas that are already somewhat built out, can support the level of density and provide these walkable neighborhoods.
So for a time check, we're right at 1 o'clock. So I'm not sure if how much time people have, if they have questions, but if you have questions and you don't want to pose them here, just drop them in an email to Joanne and we'll try to get those answered back to you.
I think that's a good idea. And, but thank you both, especially for giving such a big topic, you know, sort of the essence we all need to hear about, but doing so in an abbreviated time. So thank you, really. It does sound like a big opportunity, but also a challenge for a lot of communities. And I think getting back to, you know, the entity that is managing this is really important. You know, talking about challenges that particularly smaller communities are having is really, really important. Are there any I'm just going to, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to suggest too, because we've already compiled a number of comments. If anyone would like to see what our comments are, we're happy to share that. We're happy to share the charge for our task force. You know, anything we can do to help would be great happy to accommodate.
I think, thank you so much, Stephanie. That would be really helpful. And also, you know, that sort of almost loops back to what we talked about earlier about all these different infrastructure projects and, you know, educating and enlightening people about the how, what, where, why, but also best practices. You know, for anyone who's already done some of these projects, it would be probably a good idea for OCPC to consider, you know, building a stockpile of information so that other towns don't have to replicate, you know, anything they don't have to replicate. So just a thought about somehow capturing best practices around topics might be something for us to think about. And we've got great folks like Stephanie who are willing to share. So that's fantastic. In the interest of time, I know some people have already had to drop off. So I'm just going to ask if there are any member updates from the group. Okay, other business? And public comment? Okay, thanks everybody. Our next meeting is June 14th, and Joanne and team are fantastic about letting us know and getting the information on our calendar. So I look forward to seeing everybody at that time. And once again, welcome to the new members.
Great. So we've got Rob is moving to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any objections? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Good to see you all.
The meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye-bye.